The morning arrives beneath a ceiling of smoke. From a distance, the city still resembles the quiet Dutch town it had always been: rows of brick houses, narrow streets, church towers rising above tiled rooftops. But appearances have become dangerous things. Behind shattered windows, families crouch in silence. Along broken roads, abandoned bicycles lie twisted beside craters. Somewhere in the distance, artillery rolls like distant thunder, except this storm was made by men. For days, Arnhem has stood at the center of one of the most ambitious operations of the Second World War. Allied paratroopers have descended from the sky in great numbers, their parachutes blooming above the countryside like white flowers. Military planners believed the operation could shorten the war. Instead, the city has become a trap. And trapped within it are thousands of civilians. Among them is a young nurse. She is not a soldier. She carries no rifle. No rank marks her uniform. History will not record her name in the headlines of great battles. Yet every morning she rises before dawn and walks toward the sounds that everyone else is trying to escape. The hospital where she works is overcrowded beyond imagination. The corridors are filled with wounded soldiers. Civilians sleep on floors. Supplies vanish faster than they arrive. The smell of antiseptic struggles against smoke drifting through broken windows. Every bed is occupied. Every hallway becomes another ward. Outside, gunfire cracks across the city. Inside, another battle unfolds. A mother searches for her missing child. An elderly man waits for medicine that may never come. Young soldiers stare at the ceiling, wondering whether they will see another sunrise. The nurse moves among them quietly, carrying bandages, water, and something far rarer: calm. Yet even hospitals are no longer safe. Shells fall without warning. Bullets strike walls marked with medical symbols. The old rules, the fragile agreements meant to protect the wounded, are beginning to disappear beneath the violence. And as the fighting grows closer, a terrible question begins to emerge. What happens when mercy itself becomes a target? By the second week of fighting, Arnhem no longer feels like a city. It feels like an island. Roads are cut. Communication is failing. Entire neighborhoods have vanished behind walls of smoke and rubble. Families who once lived only a few streets apart now exist in separate worlds, divided by machine gun fire and collapsing buildings. The nurse witnesses these changes one patient at a time. A boy arrives carrying his younger sister in his arms. Neither speaks. Their home no longer exists. An elderly woman reaches the hospital after walking for hours through shellfire, clutching a photograph instead of food. A wounded paratrooper refuses treatment until someone finds the Dutch family that sheltered him. Every face tells the same story. The battle is no longer only about armies. It is about people. The hospital's supplies begin to disappear with frightening speed. Bandages are washed and reused. Medicines are divided into smaller doses. Blankets become stretchers. Curtains become makeshift dressings. Nothing is wasted because there is nothing left to waste. Yet the greatest shortage is not medical. It is information. Across Arnhem, hundreds of civilians remain trapped in cellars, attics, and damaged homes. Some are wounded. Others are starving. Many have no idea which streets remain safe or whether help is coming at all. Military commanders see maps. The nurse sees people. And slowly, a dangerous idea begins to form. If the injured cannot reach the hospital, perhaps the hospital must reach them. The proposal sounds impossible. Outside, snipers watch major intersections. Mortar fire lands without warning. Entire blocks are contested ground. Even experienced soldiers move cautiously through the city. Yet each day, reports arrive of civilians stranded beyond the front lines. Children, mothers, the elderly, the forgotten. The nurse begins making short journeys beyond the hospital walls. At first, they are only a few hundred meters. A bag of medicine delivered to a wounded father. A bottle of clean water carried to a family hiding underground. A message transported between relatives separated by the fighting. Small acts. Invisible acts. But in war, small acts often become the difference between despair and survival. Each journey teaches her something new. Which streets are less exposed? Which buildings still offer shelter? Where artillery usually falls? Where frightened civilians are gathering? She starts to build a map, not on paper, but in memory. A map of suffering. And a map of hope. Others begin to notice. Doctors warn her that she is taking unacceptable risks. Soldiers shake their heads in disbelief. Some civilians beg her not to go. Others wait desperately for her return. Because every time she leaves, she carries more than medicine. She carries proof that somebody still cares. That somebody still remembers them. That they have not been abandoned. Then comes the day the gunfire moves closer than ever. A residential district near the fighting sends word that dozens of civilians are trapped inside damaged buildings. Several are wounded. Some may not survive another night. The route to reach them crosses one of the most dangerous stretches in Arnhem. Even soldiers hesitate to travel there. The nurse listens quietly. Outside, artillery shakes the windows. Inside, silence fills the room. For a moment, everyone waits for someone else to volunteer. No one does. And then she reaches for her medical bag. Because the city is changing. The battle is changing. And soon, she will be forced to make a decision that could cost her everything. The rain begins just before dusk. It falls softly at first, mixing with ash already drifting through the air. Across Arnhem, ruined buildings stand like dark silhouettes against a fading sky. The city is exhausted. So are the people trapped within it. The nurse steps into the street carrying only what she can manage herself, a medical bag, a few bandages, limited medicine, and a determination that no military order could have created. Ahead lies the district where civilians are still waiting. The journey is terrifyingly simple. Walk forward. Do not stop. Do not panic. Do not think about the gunfire. Yet every step feels impossibly heavy. The streets are almost empty now. Doors remain shut. Curtains stay drawn. Somewhere nearby, a machine gun rattles through a burst of ammunition. Moments later comes the distant reply of another weapon. The battle continues, indifferent to everyone caught between it. As she moves through shattered neighborhoods, she discovers scenes that no official battlefield report will ever fully capture. Families huddled beneath staircases. Children sleeping beside broken walls. Elderly residents sharing the last pieces of bread they possess. People who have survived not because they are strong, but because they refuse to abandon one another. And then she reaches the wounded. The situation is worse than anyone feared. Several civilians have gone days without proper treatment. Infections are spreading. Water is scarce. Some injuries that would normally be manageable have become life-threatening simply because help could not arrive. So she begins her work. Quietly. Patient by patient. Bandage by bandage. Word by word. She cleans wounds. Distributes medicine. Offers instructions. Carries messages between separated relatives. Reassures frightened children who no longer believe adults can protect them. Outside, the war continues. Inside these damaged homes, humanity continues too. Hours pass. Darkness settles over Arnhem. And somehow, despite everything, people begin to believe they might survive. Not because the battle has improved. Not because rescue forces have arrived. But because one person chose to come. That choice matters more than statistics can measure. Eventually, the fighting around Arnhem begins to fade. The operation that promised so much has failed to achieve its grand objective. Thousands have suffered. Thousands more have been displaced. The city bears scars that will remain long after the guns fall silent. History remembers the operation through military maps, strategic debates, and the decisions of generals. Those things matter. But they are not the whole story. Because hidden beneath every great historical event are smaller stories. Stories of ordinary people confronting extraordinary circumstances. Stories that rarely appear in textbooks. Stories like hers. The nurse never commanded troops. She never planned military operations. She never stood before cheering crowds. Instead, she walked through danger carrying medicine to strangers. And in doing so, she preserved something that war constantly tries to destroy. Human dignity. Years later, survivors would remember many details incorrectly. Dates would blur. Streets would change. Buildings would disappear. Yet one memory remained remarkably clear. Someone came. Someone cared. Someone risked everything for people they did not know. That memory endured because courage is often quieter than we imagine. It rarely announces itself. It does not always arrive with medals or recognition. Sometimes it appears in the form of a tired nurse carrying a worn medical bag through streets filled with fear. The great paradox of history is that victories are usually counted in territory gained, bridges captured, or armies defeated. But the victories that shape human lives are often much smaller. A wound treated. A family reunited. A frightened child comforted. A stranger saved. And perhaps that is why stories like this matter. Because they remind us that even when the world seems consumed by violence, there are still people willing to walk towards suffering instead of away from it. Not because they expect recognition, but because someone needs help. And sometimes, in the darkest moments of history, that simple decision becomes the brightest thing left standing.
Your support gives us strength to create more stories. Please like and subscribe.